Kia ora and welcome to my channel. What's going on, friends? My name is Alexander Ayling, and in this video I'll be sharing with you the perfect 2-week New Zealand road trip itinerary. This itinerary is designed for those of you who want to come to New Zealand and experience the van life and the best of both the North and the South Islands in one epic 2-week-long trip. For those of you who are new here, I'm a full-time travel and lifestyle creator here on YouTube. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and New Zealand, and I've been living in New Zealand with my wife since 2021. I've visited this country many times growing up, visiting family. I studied abroad here, and I'm distilling all of my experience into one epic road trip itinerary. This video is gonna have a lot of information, but there's only so much that I can share in a YouTube video. That's why I highly suggest you get my travel itinerary that goes in conjunction with this video. It's where I share all of my favorite destinations, secret spots, hikes, attractions, experiences, hotels, restaurants, camping sites, so much more. All of it in one easy to use interactive map that's available offline, complete with high quality photography and custom voice memos. So grab yourself a copy. It's just over $1 a day, and it is a super useful tool to help you make the most of your time here in New Zealand. I'm also available to hop on a planning call with you to help you make the most of your trip. We can come up with a custom trip based on exactly what your interests are, your time frame, your budget. All of that we can take into consideration and help plan a super epic trip for you. So that's also available. You can book a consultation call by clicking the link in the description of this video. And yeah, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who've purchased my itineraries in the past. It makes me super happy to know that these tips are helping you all out there in the real world right now have incredible trips and make unforgettable memories. So many 10 of 10 reviews. It's really awesome, and I'm super stoked that my experiences can help you have unforgettable experiences too. So thank you. And lastly, if you enjoy the video, if you enjoy all the information that I'm about to share with you, please do me a solid, hit the thumbs up. Don't leave this video without giving it a thumbs up. It really does help this video go to a wider audience. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos, and drop a comment in the comment section with any questions or any tips of your own. Feel free to share those down there. All right, let's travel Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, New Zealand. Day one is arrival in Auckland. So most of the van rental companies, they only have 2 locations where you can pick up and drop off. Mostly that's in Auckland, which is at the north of the North Island, and Christchurch, which is on the southeastern coast of the South Island. That actually allows for a pretty good one-way van rental, a road trip that includes both the North and the South Island. New Zealand is made up of 3 main islands: the North Island, the South Island, and below the South Island, Stewart Island. 2 weeks is not a lot of time to see New Zealand. It's a long country. It's about the size of California in length and about the size of the state of Oregon in overall landmass. A couple of quick general breakdowns. The North Island is a little bit warmer than the South Island. South Island is a little bit colder, but it also on the East Coast tends to be a little bit drier. The West Coast of the South Island is the wettest corner of the country. It's also the wildest and most remote and rugged corner of the country. And we will be visiting that part of the country in this road trip. But we should quickly also talk about freedom camping. So freedom camping is a concept here in New Zealand where you can camp in certain areas of the country for free, but you do need to be in a vehicle that is certified self-contained. This basically means that it's undergone a checking procedure. Basically all of the waste is contained within the vehicle and is not being dumped willy-nilly all across the country. The camper vans you're gonna rent, make sure that they're certified self-contained. as this will allow you to do freedom camping. A quick note, before you fly to New Zealand, make sure that your hiking boots or any outdoor gear that you bring is thoroughly cleaned of any dirt. New Zealand has very strict customs regulations. This is designed to help keep any invasive species or diseases out of the islands. New Zealand is a primarily agricultural economy, and so, bringing a new disease or a pest into the country can really cause havoc to the ecosystem. So make sure your boots are clean, make sure your hiking gear is clean. Just rub it down, scrub it with soap before you leave, and you should be good to go. Day one, you're flying into Auckland Airport, you're renting your van, and then you're gonna leave Auckland and you're gonna head south on Highway 1 towards Rotorua. Rotorua is sort of like the cultural capital of the Māori people, and it's a great place to start your trip off. It's thermal, it's volcanic. There's a lot to do in Rotorua, lots of different tourism activities. One place you should definitely stop before you visit is Hobbiton. It's on the way to Rotorua in a small town called Matamata. So if you're into Lord of the Rings, then you can swing by Hobbiton and check out the Shire, hang out with Bilbo and Frodo and the whole squad. I'd probably prefer to hang out with Merry and Pippin at the Green Dragon, grab a couple of pints, and enjoy the Shire. Then continue your trip on down to Rotorua. Sleep in Rotorua on night 1. There are freedom camping areas in Rotorua. There's also lots of different restaurants. I've linked all of those camping spots as well as my favorite restaurants and activities in my New Zealand travel itinerary. So if you grab your copy, you'll have access to all of those tips as well. In the evening in Rotorua, I highly suggest you get a soak in. Thermal hot springs are all over this region, and one of the best hot springs in the country is a place called Polynesian Spa. It's located right in central Rotorua, and it's definitely worth soaking and washing off the jet lag from that flight and starting to relax into the New Zealand vibe. So you're gonna leave Rotorua and you're gonna make your way down past Lake Taupō. Looks like Taupō. It's pronounced Taupō, like a toe and a dog paw. I still struggle with the accurate pronunciation of this, but at least I'm trying. You're gonna pass Lake Taupō, which is the biggest lake in the country, also the biggest lake in the Australasia region. It's huge. It's right at the base of 3 major volcanoes. These 3 volcanoes make up the Tongariro National Park, the oldest national park in the country and home to the Tongariro Alpine crossing. But for the premises of day 2, I suggest you make the drive from Rotorua to Lake Taupō. That's about an hour and a half. Check out the town. There's a lot to see and do. It's kind of like the adventure capital of the North Island. Check out Hawke Falls, for example, where the Waikato River, which empties out of Lake Taupō, it goes right over this incredible, very, very small gorge, and it's just shooting an unbelievable amount of water out. You can actually get right up to that in a jet boat, and there's a lot to see and do. There's mountain biking, there's hiking, there's fly fishing. Some of the best fly fishing in the country is in this region. So get in there early. I would wake up and say goodbye to Rotorua and come and check out Lake Taupō area. And then that evening, you'll drive the length of the lake down to the southern part of the lake to a small town called Turangi. And in Turangi, you'll sleep there because the next day, day 3, we're gonna be doing the Tongariro Alpine crossing. One quick note, you do need to book your shuttle for the Tongariro Alpine crossing before you arrive and before you do it. So book that shuttle in advance, and that will essentially pick you up from a few different areas across Turangi, drive you to the trailhead in the Tongariro National Park, and then you're gonna walk up and over this volcano, and then they will pick you up on the other side and take you back to town. Day 3, Tongariro Alpine Crossing. So the Tongariro Alpine Crossing is an incredible day hike. It's the most popular day hike in the country, but it's for a good reason. The scenery is superb. You're in this high alpine environment. You have incredible views out across the central plateau of the North Island, as well as Lake Taupō and the surrounding area. So the hike is about 17 kilometers, if I remember correctly. It's gonna take you a fair amount of time, probably about 6 hours. And you'll need to bring your own lunch, but most importantly, just make sure you have the right equipment. You're gonna need a good rain jacket, and depending on the time of the year, especially if you're in the early season or the late season, this is, the spring or the autumn, then you should definitely have some warmer clothes because it can be cold in the morning, and also the weather can change really quickly. It can be sunny when you start and then you get up to the top and you're in a cloud, or it could even be snowing. So out of all the places in New Zealand, the most rescues happen on the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. So don't be another statistic, prepare yourself, but I got you covered. You can check out my video, 9 essential things to know before you do the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. I've linked it in the description of this video, so make sure you watch that before you do the hike. At the end of the day, you'll be back in Turengi. I highly suggest you do another thermal soak. There are some hot springs just outside of town in Turengi, and there is a great restaurant. There's a couple of little restaurants in town, but there's one restaurant in particular that I really like. I've linked it in my travel itinerary, and you do need to make reservations for that one because it always books out. Moving on, day 4. This is gonna be a big day, and I don't like to rush through the North Island, but 2 weeks is not a lot of time to see New Zealand. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's really the absolute bare essential to see both islands, and you'd be better off doing a longer trip. But if that's not an option and you really wanna see both islands, then we're gonna have to hightail it through the southern half of the North Island. We're gonna drive from Turengi all the way down to Wellington. Wellington is the capital city. That drive should take you around 4.5 or 5 hours. And when you get to Wellington, there's a lot to see and do, but we're only gonna spend an afternoon there because we'll be taking the ferry to Picton, which is the harbor town on the northern coast of the South Island. We'll be crossing what's known as the Cook's Strait, which is the strait of water between the North and the South Island. I suggest that you take the evening ferry. The last one goes, I wanna say about like 7 or 8 p.m. and you'll get into Picton late at night, but you can just sleep right in Picton and then you're already on the South Island. So we'll be crossing from the North Island of New Zealand, Te Ika a Maui, or Maui's fish, because in Maori mythology, the demigod Maui you're so amazing, was fishing from his canoe, which is the South Island, Te Waiponamu, and he caught a really big fish, and that is the North Island, New Zealand, Te Ika a Maui. We'll be crossing from Te Ika a Maui down to Te Waiponamu, the South Island, and you'll be sleeping in Picton, where you get off from the ferry. Throughout this itinerary, sometimes we're gonna have days where we do a lot of driving, so that we can have days where we do no driving. Day 5, we're driving from Picton to Abel, Tasman. Go to the town of Kaiteriteri, and you can stay in one of the campgrounds there and hang out on the beach in the afternoon, and then you'll need to book again in advance a water taxi, because the next day, on day 6, you'll be hiking in the Abel Tasman National Park. You're gonna do a day walk in the Abel Tasman National Park. I suggest you do a day cruise where they pick you up on the beach in Kaiteriteri. They take you on a scenic cruise in the morning, and then they drop you off a few bays into the Abel Tasman track. The Abel Tasman track is a great walk. It's one of New Zealand's great walks, and it's a beautiful, beautiful walk, but it takes 3 days to do the whole thing. And this is a great way to get a taste of it in 1 day. You bring your own lunch, you have a picnic on the trail. There's all sorts of beautiful beaches and coves. It's a really, really beautiful corner. It's kind of like subtropical. Yeah, and then they'll pick you back up and take you and drop you back off in Kaiteriteri at the end of the day. It's a wonderful day. It's a great way to get another taste of a very different part of New Zealand. And what I'm trying to do with this itinerary is showcase all of the different ecological zones. Even though New Zealand is a small country, it's got so many diverse ecosystems. And the ecosystem in the Abel Tasman National Park is definitely worth seeing. This is the best way to do it on a short period of time. All right, on day 7, you've already done a week in New Zealand. How does time fly so fast? I don't know, but it does. On day 7, we're leaving Kaiteriteri and we're driving to Maruia Hot Springs. We'll be driving up into the Southern Alps. Basically, the Southern Alps are like a spinal cord of the South Island. They go the whole length of the South Island, and this is the very northernmost tip of the Southern Alps in a place called Nelson Lakes. So you're gonna drive south, you'll go up into the mountains, stop at Nelson Lakes, take a picnic there, cook up a meal. Got a kitchen in your van, so take advantage of it. Post up right there, open up the back, right on the edge of the lake, cook up a nice meal, relax, take some photos. It's an absolutely beautiful place. You don't really need to rush today because we're not driving super, super far. After lunch in Nelson Lakes, drive down to Maruia Hot Springs. There is a campground there at the Hot Springs Resort. It's a really, really beautiful spot. It's not very expensive and you get access to the hot springs, which is totally worth it. Warning though, you are coming down into the west coast of the South Island, which is where sandflies are the worst in the whole country. What are sandflies, you're asking? Well, they're little demonic creatures. Honestly, they come from the depths of hell. They're super small and they are a biting fly. And the bites, they hurt, especially if you've never been bitten by one before. They do have a tendency to kind of swell up a little bit and they're really itchy. So you'll probably scratch them, they'll get red, they might get a little inflamed. You bring bug spray and you use it. Also just cover up if you can. They like to hang out near water and they love eating you. Additionally, bring some hydrocortisone cream. That will help if you do have an allergic reaction and those bites start to swell up. So after you've had a soak at Maruia Hot Springs, get an early night sleep, relax, and just enjoy that beautiful corner of the South Island. Day 8, we're driving from Maruia Hot Springs along the west coast and we're going to Hawke's Glacier. In the morning, sneak in a cheeky little hot spring soak, get cleaned up, have coffee and breakfast, and then hit the road. You're about to witness the majesty of the west coast of New Zealand's South Island. This is a beautiful stretch of highway. You have the ocean off on the right-hand side, and you've got huge mountains off on the left. This is the wildest corner of the country, but it still has a frontier feel, and I really love that about the West Coast region. The goal for today is to check out some of the glaciers. So there's 2 main glaciers here, the Franz Josef Glacier and the Hawke's Glacier. The Franz Josef Glacier is the more popular one of the two, just because Franz Josef as a town is slightly bigger and just has a little bit more amenities. But the glacier itself actually has almost double the amount of visitors. So if you're like me, I like to try to avoid crowds. And that's why I would suggest driving the extra 25 minutes past Franz Josef. If you need to stop there and resupply at a grocery store or whatever, you can do that. But I would suggest heading down to Hawke's Glacier, camping in that area, and then hiking up to the glacier. Day 9, we're driving from Fox Glacier all the way up, away from the west coast and into the Southern Alps to the town of Wānaka. Wānaka is a beautiful little town right in the middle of the South Island. It's surrounded by incredible mountain scenery. And in the wintertime, it's a really popular skiing and snowboarding destination. But in the summer and in the spring and in the autumn, it's a great place for mountain biking, hiking, and it's just a really, really unique little town. There's plenty of great day hikes, including Roy's Peak, and you could even just rent a mountain bike or an electric bike and check out the trails along the lake. I've linked all of the activities that you can do, not to mention all of the restaurants in my itinerary, so make sure you grab yourself a copy and then you can plan out what you want to do when you get there. At the end of day 9, grab dinner in Wānaka and sleep in Wānaka. The next day, day 10, drive from Wānaka to Queenstown. Now this is a pretty short drive, so I would suggest waking up in the morning and driving down to Arrowtown. Arrowtown is this beautiful little former gold mining town nestled right up in the mountains, and it's really, really beautiful spot. But it's also home to some of the best wineries in the country. Central Otago, the region, is best known for its Pinot Noir grapes, and there's a lot of really nice wineries that do great food. It's a great spot to kind of stop and just soak in some of the finer things in New Zealand. Have yourself a glass of wine, enjoy a great meal at one of the wineries, and then after you have your lunch, drive down to Queenstown. Queenstown is the adventure capital of New Zealand. It's the most popular tourism destination in the country, and there's a lot to see and do. But this is definitely the place to get your adrenaline fix. There's so many different ways to get your heart rate up, whether that's just going for a hike or going bungee jumping. This is where bungee jumping was invented in the 1980s by a guy named A.J. Hackett at a little bridge just outside of town. You can still do that bungee jump, but if you want to take it up a level, you can do the Nevis bungee jump, which is one of the biggest bungee jumps in the world. It's, I'm pretty sure, the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. It's definitely the biggest in New Zealand, and it is scary. I've done it twice. It doesn't get easier, but it is definitely a huge adrenaline rush.
2, 1, bungee.
Yeah! So whether you want to go skydiving, bungee jumping, paragliding, or go on one of the jet boats like the Shot Over Jet, you can do all of those adrenaline activities and many, many more in Queenstown. I've linked all my favorite things to do in Queenstown in the itinerary, all my favorite restaurants, bars, activities, experiences, hikes, all of that is linked in the itinerary. All right, day 11. We're getting into the final few days of your time in New Zealand, and you've got choices to make. You could decide to spend another day or maybe even 2 days in Queenstown, just relaxing, doing some of the many different tourist activities that you can do there. And that's a great thing to do. But you are right next to the Milford Sound in Fiordland. The Milford Sound is nicknamed the 8th wonder of the world down here in New Zealand. It's an absolutely stunningly beautiful natural vista. It's about 4-hour drive away from Queenstown. It's located right down in the southwesternmost corner of the country in a region named Fiordland because the coastline is full of these fjords. It is gonna be a bit of driving, but if you're just coming to New Zealand this one time, or you really want to see as much as possible, then do it. I'd wake up early, I'd hit the road early so I get in the mid-afternoon into Milford Sound, and then I would suggest trying to book a Milford Sound cruise for that evening. You can get out on the water, you can see the dolphins, you can see the waterfalls tumbling down from the mountains right into the ocean. It is an unbelievably beautiful place, and going at a sunset cruise there is definitely the call. That way, when it comes to day 12, you can go for a hike on the Milford track. You can do a day on the Milford track, which will give you that complete Milford experience where you've been out on the water, but you've also been into the bush and you've spent a day hiking on the Milford track. You can get a little water taxi, which will drop you off at the end of the track, and you can walk up and back for the day before they pick you back up and take you back to Milford Sound. And then relax in the evening, get an early night's sleep because you've got a big drive on day 13. Day 13, leave Milford Sound and drive to Mount Cook National Park. Mount Cook National Park is a must visit. It's without a doubt in the top 3 of the most scenic places in the country. It's arguably the most scenic national park in the country, and it's home to some incredible walks, some really, really good day hikes. I think it shouldn't be overlooked. It's gonna be like a 6-hour drive, so wake up and get on it, get there early so that you can do a hike in the afternoon or the evening. There's campgrounds within the national park, but if you don't want to pay for that, then you can just freedom camp on Lake Pukaiki, which is just outside of the park. And then day 14, you're gonna drive from Mount Cook National Park or Lake Pukaiki. You'll pass Lake Tekapo, another incredibly beautiful lake in the Mackenzie country, one of my favorite corners of this country of New Zealand. And while I wish we could have spent more time in this area, you've got only 2 weeks and we're trying to see as much as we can. So I'd suggest you stop for lunch in Tekapo, you take a photo at the Church of the Good Shepherd, and then you can just mosey on back to Christchurch and drop that van off, get an evening flight up to Auckland, or maybe spend a night in Christchurch at a hotel, and then the next morning you fly back to Auckland and catch your flight home. So there you have it, friends. 2 weeks, 14 days in New Zealand, van life, freedom camping, the best of both islands. I understand, like 2 weeks is what most of us have for vacation. And it's a lot of movement because New Zealand is bigger than it looks on a map. We want to see as much as we can, so I think that itinerary balances out the best locations in a feasible road trip itinerary where you're not just driving. You've got a couple of days where you have no driving, you can stop, you can enjoy, and the days that you do drive, only a couple of the days are like super long drives. If you need more information, if you want all of my best tips and guides, then grab yourself a copy of the itinerary for this video. It's linked in the description, it's linked in the cards. It will really, really help you out when it comes time to plan your trip. And if you need even more help, give me a call, book a consultation call. We will work together to come up with the best possible itinerary for your trip. And I'm looking forward to talking to you. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed, let's change that. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Okay, friends, sending you all lots of good vibes. Catch you in the next video. Peace.